Please, don't worry about me, dear. I'll put a few things back. I've done it before. The old man said it the way people say things they have made peace with, quietly, without shame, with the particular dignity of someone who has learned that certain hardships are simply part of the texture of a life. He was standing at the checkout lane of Mercer's Market on a Tuesday afternoon, his basket containing a can of soup, a small loaf of bread, a single apple, and a box of oatmeal. The cashier, a teenager named Brinley, who had not yet learned to hide her discomfort, was already reaching for the apple with an apologetic expression. Petra Wynne set her hand gently on the conveyor belt. "No, please," she said. "I'd like to get his things." Both the old man and Brinley looked at her. Petra was 25 years old and worked as an artist, the kind of artist who was genuinely talented and genuinely broke, who sold watercolors at weekend markets and took on the occasional illustration commission and stretched every dollar with the creativity she also applied to her canvases. She lived in a studio apartment above a laundromat on Calloway Street, where the light came in beautifully in the mornings, which partly made up for everything else. She had $18 in her checking account and had been carefully selecting groceries for the past 20 minutes, putting things back twice, making quiet calculations. She had 9 items in her basket. She put all 9 on the belt behind the old man's groceries. "You don't have to do that," he said, looking at her with eyes that were pale gray and very clear. "I know," she said simply. "I want to. Please let me." He looked at her for a long moment, the searching, careful look of someone who has been given false kindness before and learned to check. Then something in his expression settled. He nodded once, with a gravity that felt more than the occasion required, and said, "Thank you. My name is August." "Petra," she said, and smiled. She paid for everything. It was $31 and some cents, which was $13 more than she had, which meant she put it on the credit card she kept for genuine emergencies and tried not to think too carefully about the interest rate. She told herself it was fine. She told herself it was in fact fine, because it was the right thing, and she had learned from her mother, a woman who had given her last 20 to a stranger at a bus stop once and come home looking lighter for it, that some expenditures were not really expenditures at all. August carried his own bag. He insisted on that. They walked out of Mercer's together into the pale November afternoon, and he stopped on the sidewalk and turned to her. "You're an artist," he said. She blinked. "How did you know?" He gestured gently at her fingers. There was a streak of cerulean blue along her right thumb that she had missed in her morning wash. She laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of her. "Watercolor," she said, "mostly." "What do you paint?" he asked, and the question was not polite filler. He was genuinely asking, with the focused attention of someone who had always considered art a serious matter. "Places," she said. "The way light falls on ordinary things. Doorways, windowsills, market stalls, the things people walk past." He was quiet for a moment, looking at her with those clear gray eyes. "My wife painted," he said, "for 40 years. She always said the world was full of beauty that was too quiet to demand attention. Someone had to choose to see it." Petra felt something move through her, the particular warmth of an unexpected resonance. "She sounds like someone I would have loved to know."
"She was," he said. "Simply. Completely." They stood on the sidewalk for a moment longer. Then August reached into the inside pocket of his coat and produced a small card. It was ivory, slightly worn at one corner, with embossed lettering. He held it out to her. "If you ever want to show your work somewhere that would truly see it," he said, "call that number. Tell them August sent you." She took it. She didn't look at it right away. She tucked it into her coat pocket and said goodbye warmly, watched him walk slowly down the street with his bag, and then stood alone on the sidewalk, feeling the particular fullness of a small and genuine human exchange. She looked at the card on the bus home. Brinley, the cashier, had frozen when August pulled the card from his pocket in the store. Petra hadn't noticed, but Brinley had seen the name embossed on it and gone very still in the way people go still when something reorders their understanding of a situation. She had said nothing, but she had watched Petra pay for an old man's groceries without knowing what she was actually standing next to. The card read, "August Crane, founding patron, Crane Arts Foundation, established 1987. Petra sat on the bus with the card in her hands and looked at it for a long time. She knew the name. Every artist in the city knew the name. The Crane Arts Foundation had funded more emerging artists over the past 3 decades than any private institution in the state. It had launched careers. It had kept studios open during impossible years. It had, in the quiet and deliberate way of its founder, changed the landscape of what was possible for artists who had talent and no safety net. She thought about the single apple, the oatmeal, the way he had said he put things back, that he'd done it before. She pulled out her phone and searched. August Crane, the foundation's founder, had given away the majority of his personal fortune over 30 years in grants, commissions, and institutional support. He lived, by choice and by long-standing habit, with deliberate simplicity. He had one son, Rafferty Crane, who ran the foundation's operations and had expanded it significantly in the past 6 years. There were photographs. Rafferty was 33, with his father's gray eyes and his father's way of looking at a camera as though he was evaluating something underneath the surface. Petra rode the rest of the way home in a silence that felt full rather than empty. She called the number on the card 3 days later. She told herself she was calling to thank August, not to ask for anything, just to close the loop properly, the way her mother had taught her that kindness deserved acknowledgement. The number connected to the foundation's main line. She gave her name and said August had suggested she call. She was put through, after a pause, to Rafferty Crane. His voice was measured and warm, the way his father's had been. He said his father had called him the evening of the Tuesday at Merce's Market and described a young woman with cerulean blue on her thumb who painted the things people walked past and who had paid for his groceries without a second of hesitation. He said, Rafferty continued, and she could hear something careful in his voice, that she looked at him like he was worth looking at. That's how he put it. Petra pressed her lips together. He is, she said. He absolutely is. A pause. He also said that her work sounded like the kind of thing the foundation exists to support. He'd like to see it. I'd like to see it, if you're willing to bring a portfolio. She came the following Thursday. She brought 12 pieces, the best of what she had, watercolors of the light through her laundromat window, a doorway on Fenwick Road, the Tuesday market on Callaway Street where an old man had once stood at a stall with apples. She set them on the long table in the foundation's presentation room, and August was there, in a good chair by the window, wearing a proper jacket this time, his gray eyes moving across each piece with the unhurried attention of someone who genuinely knew how to look. When he came to the market painting, the one with the apple stall, the morning light slanting across the wooden crates, he was quiet for a long moment. There, he said softly. That's the thing my wife always talked about. The beauty that doesn't demand attention.
Rafferty was standing near the window. He was watching his father, not the paintings, and his expression was the expression of a son who loves his father and is aware, with the particular awareness of someone who has been paying attention for a long time, that these moments are not infinite. Petra looked between the two of them, this old man who had stood at a checkout lane with a single apple and told her he'd done it before, and this quiet, careful son with his father's eyes, and understood something about why August had lived the way he had, not from shortage, from intention, from the belief that money released into the world as generosity returned as something no balance sheet could measure. She was offered a 6-month residency grant before she left. She accepted it with the steadiness of someone who had learned that receiving gracefully is its own form of courage. Walking out of the Crane Foundation on a Thursday afternoon, Petra Wynne thought about $31 and some cents, and about how the smallest acts of seeing someone, truly seeing them the way her mother had always done, had a way of beginning things that neither person could have planned. Kindness doesn't ask who someone is before it offers. It just offers. And the world, when met with that kind of openness, has a quiet way of offering back.